Last year, check this out. Last year, February 21, this is where inflation was, and we've been climbing. But the bottom line is, I think if you go back to last month, February had like a 0.03 or 0.04 increase, right? So it was inflation was at 0.03 or 0.04. And I said last month that I think we're going to be in the 0.6 to 0.9 range, this range, the whole time over the next several months. And so when you look at that, it's really, really crazy to think about the fact that we have another couple months that this is just going to get worse and worse and worse. Hey, what's going on, cash flow hackers? It's Chris with Life 180, and I am starting this video off with an ugly, ugly scene. I've been doing videos on this every single month as the new consumer price index information is dropped, and here we go for the information from February that has been released, and the numbers are not pretty, quite frankly. Quite frankly, I sound like Donald Trump. Quite frankly, these numbers are not very good at all. So you can see here that February inflation in 2022 is at a 0.0 or a 0.8 increase. What does that mean? That means last year, check this out. Last year, February 21, this is where inflation was, and we've been climbing. But the bottom line is, I think if you go back to last month, February had like a 0.03 or 0.04 increase, right? So it was inflation was at 0.03 or 0.04. And I said last month that I think we're going to be in the 0.6 to 0.9 range, this range, the whole time over the next several months. And so when you look at that, it's really, really crazy to think about the fact that we have another couple months that this is just going to get worse and worse and worse. And so right now, what does this mean? We are at 7.9% inflation. So we are nearing 8% inflation. And so that is a 4% or a 0.4% increase. So yeah, that means 0.4% increase would mean last year in February was 0.4% inflation. And so let's go down through here. I don't know about you, but I think it's going to get worse in March. And here's why. Simply because the Ukraine and Russia controversy right now, right? Like it's pretty straightforward. Now, do I think that the Russia-Ukraine incident is the reason that inflation is going out of control? No way, no how. Do I think that the gas and the oil, the energy issues, the cost of fuel is related to that? Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be foolish to not realize that's playing a role in it. I don't know about you, but I live in Arizona, and our gas literally almost just hit $5 a gallon. Like, I've never seen that. I never thought I would see that, quite frankly, anytime soon. I've been seeing stuff in California with gas in the mid sixes, and it's crazy. And so I think the fuel inflation prices are going to get worse and worse and worse. So like when you look at gasoline inflation right now, 38%, that number is going to get worse and worse and worse. It's going to get bigger and bigger. And that's a big portion of what we have. Now, one of the things that I am a big believer of, and I listen to a guy named Peter Schiff. If you don't listen to Peter Schiff, I honestly think when it comes to this conversation around inflation, he is the only guy, myself included. You should just not listen to me. You should go listen to Peter Schiff. I know that's a stupid thing for me to say, but the guy is brilliant when it comes to this stuff. And he's always saying right now, and he's done statistics, he's an economist. He went to Cal Berkeley, which is crazy that like a libertarian person came out of Cal Berkeley of all places. But here's the bottom line. When you look at inflation and the calculations in how inflation is actually determined at this point in time, a lot of conversation out of the Fed is telling people, and out of the government is telling people that, listen, this is not the 70s. Inflation isn't that bad. We're not even at 8% right now. Back then it was 13.5%. How bad could it really be? But if you look at the fact and look at the way of the of how inflation is calculated, it will show you that if you use the same calculations that we used back in 1979 when inflation hit the all-time worst at 13.5%, if you use those calculations, our inflation numbers right now would be almost 16%. And so, in fact, inflation right now is worse than it's ever been. The challenge is that the Federal Reserve, the government, all these organizations have manipulated the calculation to make inflation seem less than it is. Now, I know a lot of people around the country are feeling the burden of inflation worse than it's actually being calculated. That's because the cost of rents, the cost of home increases don't go into inflation, don't count as high of a percentage of inflation as they used to. The cost of food, the cost of gas, think about the things, the cost of energy and electricity, all the things that every single person has to spend their money on every single month. It's pulling money out of your pocketbook. I went to Costco the other day, literally got my normal round of groceries, and I got 3 kids. I usually spend between $300 and $400. I spent $540 at Costco. For what? Not going and getting anything else. The costs of inflation are getting real. If you look around, some of the packages that have not gone up in price, they've actually shrank the packages. You know, something that you'd get a 16-ounce jar of peanut butter, now it's 14 ounces. So they shrink it, and so you feel better, like you're not paying more, but ultimately you are paying more than you were before. And so it's those kinds of things that people have to look at, and the inflation numbers right now are just crazy to look at. So I'm not gonna lie, this is the first time I've gone through this, and I'm just very curious and fascinated to do this live with everybody to show these numbers. And I'm not gonna spend a ton of time or take a lot of your time, but I wanna see anything that pops out. It is crazy, the gas and oil inflation, energy services, fuel oil for homes is 43.6% inflation. That's insane. I want to go down. I want to check out food inflation. Let's see. Food inflation is actually relatively normal right now. February 21 through 22, you can see the inflation. No, it's not that normal. 8.6%. Yeah, that's about right. 7.9% for food at home. Dairy and other dairy products, 13%. So that's pretty high. Energy as a whole, 25%. Commodities, motor fuel, electricity is up 9%. That's bad. Let's see here. Used cars and trucks. This is a crazy one to me. 41%. This number just keeps going up. I don't understand. I think it's a combination of the supply chain issues and the fact that we have a big issue in the chip manufacturing, and I just don't get it. I don't understand how used cars and trucks, maybe it's because people aren't buying new vehicles, because if you look at new vehicles, new vehicle inflation is 12%, but used vehicles are getting more expensive. I had somebody offer, I got a 2017 Jeep Rubicon that I got pretty decked out and stuff, but I literally had a Jeep dealer offer me way more than I thought it would be worth. Now I'm not going to do it because I got to replace it, and I'm not going to do it. But it blew my mind. Airline fares up 12.7%. If you've looked to book any travel recently, you know that number is going to go nowhere but up, because airline fares are getting extremely expensive. Flour, baked mixes, 11%. All these numbers, this whole column where my cursor is right now, this whole column. These numbers, remember, the target rate of inflation, guys, the target rate of inflation is 2%. Any number above 2% is a negative indicator, according to the Federal Reserve. I can't find a number under 2%. And here's the bottom line. If you understand the way that this works, this is why we're in so much trouble. This is why I'm going to scroll all the way back up here. I'm not gonna waste anybody's time. You go through this. I'm going to put this link right here so you can go and look at this for yourself. But the bottom line is, if you look at these numbers, we're at 8% inflation. The federal funds rate right now is under 0.25%. So what does that mean? That means Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Fed, is talking about raising interest rates right now, and he's talking about doing draconian measures and potentially doing big jumps by 0.5 point or a point at a time. And the reality is, we are at negative interest rate environments right now. And what I mean by that is, it's not real nominal negative rates, but it's negative in the context of, if inflation is 8% and the rate is 1%, that means your cost of money to borrow is cheaper, 7% cheaper than the rate of inflation for the purchasing power of that money. So what that means is, Jerome Powell is going to have to raise, if he wants to slow down inflation, this is just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. The cat's out of the bag here. If he wants to slow down inflation, he's going to have to raise interest rates up to 8%, or we're going to wind up being forced in there by getting an inflationary depression, because inflation is going to get so bad, people just can't afford stuff. And so then all spending is going to shut down, uncertainty, fear in the marketplace is going to take over, and that's just the way it's going to be. So you cannot avoid this. The question is, do we want to avoid this with sound Austrian economics, or do we want to get pushed into this with irresponsible Keynesian economics, which is ultimately where we're going? So anyway, hope you found value in that. If you have any questions at all, comment in the comment section below. If you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button, hit that bell, that way you get notified every time I launch a new video. And as always, have a blessed, inspirational day. I'll look forward to seeing you on the next video. Take care.